Pascoe's portfolio in Canada includes over 70 products that are herbal, homeopathic, and dietary supplements. Without further delay, I'd like to welcome back Coach Gaétan Boutin, a human high performance coach and movement specialist, to lead our conversation and answer all your questions this evening. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, Coach Gaétan.
Thanks, Alex. Great to be here as always. Super excited to have this conversation. I think this is a conversation that people are going to need to hear. I think coming down to the end of the year as well, it's going to be good timing for this conversation, whether you're listening to this live. We are back. It's part 4. And if you guys haven't seen or watched the first 3 parts of our series, this is an absolute must. We have a ton of great information on the other 3 parts that we did. We talked about nutrition, we talked about movement, we talked about mindset, a whole kind of bundle of things that are really important for your overall health, your wellness, and your performance. And like I was saying tonight, we're going to talk about recovery. And it's one of the most underrated, underappreciated parts of performance. And again, when I'm talking about performance, I'm not just talking about like high level athletic performance. We're talking about everyday human performance, whether that's going to work, whether it's that's playing with your kids, walking your dog, being able to focus on things they need to do throughout the day. It's overall performance. And I think everyone can relate that we all want to perform well, whether it's just every day or throughout our lifetime. So I think this is super important. It's a pleasure to be here as always. Really big thanks and shout out to Pascoe for organizing these conversations, for putting this out there. I've been fortunate enough to be using Pascoe products for going on at least 8 years now. We use them with all of our clients, all of our athletes, and we've had huge success. I'm a big believer in all of their things, and that's why I'm here today, because I really believe in what they do and what they're about. So this is a live Q&A, so hopefully, bring your questions, ask all your questions, you get a chance to pick my brain. This is a topic that I've been specializing in for probably 15 years now, and it's super important. So recovery is essentially like that flip side of everything else that we do. So we're always on this go, go, go kind of mentality. And without that recovery, without that reset, like we're not going to get to rebuild and regrow. We're going to in this constant kind of downward spiral. And you're never going to chance to kind of come back up the other side. And your body's just going to kind of start to deteriorate, and you're going to have all kinds of issues. So, we'll get into the questions, but real quick, some of the common issues or signs that we see from poor recovery are fatigue, like chronic fatigue, mental disorders, like even depression. And in my opinion, I'm not talking about clinical depression necessarily. That's not my expertise, obviously. But the word depression, in my opinion, stands for deep rest. And why I say that is most people that are experiencing some form of depression are lacking recovery, they're lacking rest, and it's basically their body forcing them into this rest state. And that is like so important, because our body sometimes will just take over, and it's really important to understand that. Another thing is like sore muscles, sore joints, these types of injuries, breakdowns, and depressed immune system. If you find like you're getting sick often, you're getting a cold often, these are all signs that your immune system is compromised, you're not recovering well, and that could be very, very dangerous and devastating for you long term. So that's why this conversation is super important. So everyone, if you don't know who I am, that means you haven't watched the other 3 parts so far, but real quick, I'm a human high performance coach, and essentially what that means is I help people become the best version of themselves. I specialize in movement, strength and conditioning, nutrition, mindset coaching, and we have an organization called Strong Athlete where we help people of all shapes, sizes, ages, types to become better. So we work with older people that have had surgeries, we work with young athletes, we work with parents, we work with all kinds of people that really just want to take their health and their wellness to the next level. And we are what we call a holistic high performance company. So we take an integrated, holistic approach to helping people. And I'm a big believer in that. And that's why we're here talking with Pascoe, because they have similar beliefs and they make amazing natural products. So, Alex, we want to kick off some questions.
Yeah, absolutely. I already do have a question here from Jenny.
Okay.
She asks, where should I start to improve my recovery?
So there's multifacets, and I kind of just said like this is a holistic approach. The first place I would look at with recovery, the simplest one is hydration. So most people are walking around and they're dehydrated. They don't drink enough water. It's crazy. Like I see people, they just drink like coffee, they drink tea, and they drink like sodas or this type of thing. And their body is dehydrated. And when you're dehydrated, you can't function well. Your body can't regenerate itself. If you think the majority of your body is water, and there's numbers bouncing all over the place, you know, your body's anywhere from 70% to 80% water. And if you imagine if that's what your body is primarily made up, but every cell is filled with water, and you're not replenishing that water. If you think about when you sleep, when you exhale, like when you sleep, you sweat. When you breathe out liquid, you breathe out water. All of these things, you're constantly putting water out there. When you have a hot shower, you actually can lose water that way. If you have a hot bath, you can lose water. So if you're not replenishing that, that is huge. So that's the simplest thing. When someone starts working with me and they ask me a question about anything, what supplement this, what food this, what training this, what workout exercise, my first thing is how much water do you drink and where do you get your water from? You know, because water is not all created equal. Water has like dissolved parts. So if you're just using your tap water, like that's what I call dead water. So it's lacking key minerals and nutrients. So you want to make sure that you're trying to source out good quality water. I get it. It's not accessible to everyone to find high quality water. And also be careful about buying plastic bottles. You know, people buy those big 24 cases of plastic, and those plastics have put all kinds of different chemicals into that water. So, you know, in an ideal world, you get a water filtration system on your house, and then you add minerals back into the water, like some sea salt, for example, is what we use, or trace minerals. You can add those back into the water to add more minerals, which is essential. You can find a place that sources spring water. We get our spring water in glass bottles so that it doesn't have all the chemicals. So water is the simplest thing. And then I'll just give two for right now, Alex. The second one is your sleep. Your sleep determines everything. If you're not sleeping well, there's no way that you're recovering, because that is your body's prime time to regenerate and recover. That's when your body likes to basically bath your brain or replenish your brain in nutrients. It's when your joints get to shut down, it's when your muscles get to shut down. It's basically this whole process of like cleaning out the body and recovering. So I think if we don't get another question on sleep, I'm going to talk more specifically about sleep, but let's see kind of where this goes. But I definitely will probably harp on sleep some more.
I actually do have a question from Christina. How much sleep do I really need?
Okay, I knew there was going to be, once I talk about sleep, people have a million questions. The first thing I would say before we talk about how much sleep, my first thing is about quality of sleep. So look for quality over quantity in all situations in your life. And we want to focus on, are you getting into a good sleep? Are you getting into a deep sleep? And then how long are you staying asleep? Are you constantly waking up? So finding like quality sleep is the first part of that. And then how long? Well, it depends on your age. It depends on your activity level. It depends on many things. But as a benchmark, I like the range of 7 to 8 hours of sleep. To me, that's a beautiful range. If you sleep a little more, that's great. If you're sleeping less than 7, you're starting to trickle into the 6 hour range, in my opinion, that's not enough time for your body to get fully regenerated. So if you understand there's something called sleep cycles, as you fall asleep, your body kind of goes through cycles of like going down into deep sleep, REM sleep, back up light sleep. So those cycles are anywhere from like 20 minutes to 40 minutes. So you want to make sure you're going through enough cycles in that sleep period of time to help regenerate. On top of that, another key thing is the window of sleep, meaning the time that you're sleeping. So there's a lot of research that says from basically 10 p.m. till about 2 to 3 a.m. That's like the prime window of regeneration for sleep. So if you're a late night owl and you're going to sleep at like 1, 2 in the morning and you're sleeping in, you're missing out on that whole opportunity. And why this is the case is we have something called the circadian rhythm, which basically is simple means we follow the sun and the moon. So as the sun goes down, our melatonin starts to come up, which is basically a hormone that helps us sleep. And then that builds and that helps us fall asleep. And then when the sun starts to come up, our melatonin goes down and our cortisol goes up, and that helps to wake us up. So if we follow that kind of moon sun cycle, we're actually going to get the most benefit and the most recovery. So sleep quality is first, 7 to 8 hours on average, and then that window from like 10 p.m. until about 3 a.m. is kind of prime time. And if you're a shift worker, I feel bad for you. I would hope that you find another career. I know that's a terrible thing to say, but shift work is really, really, really devastating on people's body, and there's a ton of research. So hopefully that answers that question.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do have a question here from Larry. Do you have any tips to get the most restful sleep possible, especially for people who are very busy and have limited time for sleep?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's everybody. Like I don't know too many people that just ease in and they sleep well. Like everyone needs a little bit of a process. So a couple of things that help. I like to shut things down about an hour before I go to sleep. So remove devices. Try not to be watching TV. Like let's say you go to bed. Like I personally in our household we go to bed at 10:30, and that's only a compromise because my wife is a late owl and I'm an early bed, so we've kind of compromised. But like about an hour, 45 minutes before we're gonna go to sleep, we turn off TV, we turn off phones, we turn off computers, tablets. We have 1,000 different things. That would include iWatches, people, for those of you who wear them. Get rid of those devices about an hour before. And then also the lighting in your house, start to dim your lighting. That's a really important thing because the light is stimulating. Like lumens from light are like the sun, and that helps with our cortisol, which we don't want. So as the lights dim, that will really be helpful for our melatonin production, slowly come down. And then for busy brain, there's a couple of things we recommend. So I like a product from Pascoe, Pascoe Flair, which I've been using with my athletes for many years because my athletes, they travel. You wouldn't believe, people are always like, oh, pro athletes have the best life ever. They actually have some of the worst life because most of them, not my athletes, but most of them come back from their teams and their seasons and they're addicted to sleeping pills and all these different things because their schedules are so erratic and they come off of a game and they're all pumped up still and their mind's racing. Then they have to get on a bus. Sometimes it's an hour or two, and then they have to go to sleep. So we use a product called Pasco Flair, which I always have kicking around. I always have them at my house. I have some at my training center. And basically that's passion flower. And what it does, it just helps kind of set you at ease. It creates this sense of calmness. So if you find you're like overly stimulated, Pascal Flair is just a really good addition to this program that I'm talking about to just set you at ease. And the cool thing about it is like it's non-habit forming. So like you're not going to become addicted to it. Like a sleeping pill is very habit forming. This is non-habit forming. And you won't need to take it all the time. You kind of just take it as needed. So that's another key part of that. And then the last part, which is kind of funny, is stop drinking like liquids or water about 2 to 3 hours before you go to bed, other than like very, very small sips if you want to wet your mouth. Because what most people do, they get up and they go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. Like that's usually what wakes you up. You have to go to the bathroom. So if you lower that water intake, and I know a minute ago I said you need to drink more water, which I agree, but in the evening start to kind of limit because you should have drank most of your water already in the day, and that will also prevent you from having to get up and go to the bathroom. And then one more quick tip: if you have super busy brain and you tried your Pascal Flare and it's helping, but your just mind is still racing, keep a little journal book by your bed and literally just write out what's on your brain at that moment. Like whatever it is, just write it all out and close the book and put it there. and now it's kind of out of your brain. So that's a lot, but I wanted to say a lot there because I think it's probably the most important part of this conversation is those sleep habits.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks, Larry, for the question. I do have another question from Maya. Pascoe Flair recommended to take 2 times a day. What is the best time to take it?
So I like taking it again before sleep. I think that's the number one time to take it. And then any other time where you're feeling most stressed in your day. So it works pretty like I'll say immediately, not like instantly, but like it works when you take it and it helps to kind of set you at ease. So it's kind of whenever you feel tension or you feel busy or you feel stressed, it can be used. I like to use it as needed. So there's different recommendations on it, but I just recommend to use it as needed. And obviously you don't need to do it too close together. So kind of spread it out because you will feel that sensation kind of for a little while. So it depends on the person.
Perfect. I have a question here from Leonard. I experienced joint pain and delayed onset muscle soreness for several days after weightlifting. Is that a sign of poor recovery?
So yes and no. If you've changed, so there's two parts to that question, just to be clear. There's the joint pain, which is different to me from the what's called DOMS, what Alex just said was delayed onset muscle soreness. Those are kind of two separate things, in my opinion. So I will talk about the muscle soreness first, because that isn't necessarily a sign. When we change someone's workout or we change the stress to their body, initially there'll be this accelerated level of, call it breakdown, which will lead to muscle soreness ongoing. The first sign of that, if that lasts too long, number one is you're probably not hydrated, which I already spoke about. You need to hydrate more because those toxins that you built up are not being flushed out of your body. So that's number one. Number two is you need to move to get those toxins out as well. So soreness is basically like toxins in your muscle cell. And most people think like, oh, I'm sore, I should just rest. Well, that's kind of like the opposite of what I suggest. If you're sore, you should move. And of course, you have to progressively move. If your legs are really sore, I'm not saying go to the end of your driveway and then go run as hard as you can. No, build it up, walk, move, get some circulation going, and start to build on that. That will help to flush that out. Movement is always the best treatment for soreness because it pushes the lymphatic system and it creates drainage. Now, with that being said, if you do that regularly and you're running like a similar program and you're still getting this soreness ongoing, then definitely you are not recovering properly. That's a huge sign. And we need to look at your nutrition, which is really important. Are you filling your body with the right nutrients and nutrition to support the workload that's being put on your body? Again, are you hydrating properly? Are you getting enough water? Or are you overdoing your training to the capability of your body? So that's another big thing. If I have someone fairly new come in and their training age is really young, meaning they haven't been working out or training for a long time, I'm not going to put them through an advanced workout. These are things like, CrossFit. I don't mean to bash CrossFit, but they kind of treat everyone equal. You walk in a door, and no matter who you are, they basically just hammer you right from the beginning. And that's a bad thing. You have to progress and build on that. So now let's go to the second part, or which was the first part of that question, which is joint pain. Ongoing joint pain is definitely a sign of under recovery. That is an inflammatory response. That is a overly developed or overly stimulated cortisol response. And let me explain that to you. When we talked about sleep and we said at night your melatonin goes up, and then in the morning your cortisol is called your stress hormone. It wakes you up. It's stimulating to your body. We have something called the fight or flight reaction, which I think most people have heard of, and I won't talk too sciencey about it, but the fight or flight reaction is programmed into us from primitive times where if we were walking and we saw a lion, we have to basically immobilize our body. Our energy has to mobilize if we need to run, if we need to freeze, or we need to fight it, or whatever we're going to do, but we need mobilizing of energy. So that's like a stimulation happens in our body. And what's produced is cortisol, which helps mobilize our energy. Now, in those times, and it's fun, I was having this conversation with one of my athletes today about this, the interaction with the lion is probably not going to be very long. Either you're going to get away, it's not going to bother you, or it's going to eat you, God forbid. And that's only like probably within a 5-minute process. And then you can shut it down and relax and calm down. And then the cortisol and those different hormones, they kind of dissipate. But in our day and age, we're constantly going. We're stimulated by phones, we're driving, we're working, we're on Zoom, we're on calls, we're on all of these things. And that cortisol doesn't shut off. That fight or flight or freeze doesn't shut off. So if that cortisol is elevated, it's what's called a catabolic hormone. So it breaks things down in your body. And it's going to break things that are barely accessible. So it will start with muscle, connective tissue like ligaments, tendons, bones, joints specifically. If you're feeling constant soreness in your joints, that means your body is probably too high cortisol, too highly stimulated. You're not recovering well enough, hence this conversation. So you need to really take a big picture on what does your lifestyle look like? What is the amount of stimulation versus kind of rest and digest, as we would call it, because you're probably out of whack. And I'm not a fan of the word balance. I'm not saying you need to balance them, but they need to be adjusted accordingly. And then if you're getting a lot of joint pain, one of the products that we do recommend is Pascoe Agile, which is really specific for joint pain. And that's basically a devil's claw formula. I would suggest you try that while you're experiencing this pain. It does take like a few weeks to build up in your system and start to make a difference. So it's not like the Pascoe Flair where you take it and you immediately feel the benefit. This has to build up and start to create an effect. So to kickstart that process and to help reduce that joint pain, I would do the Pascoe Agile, and then I would start to change all those other things in the meantime. And then eventually, as you start to improve those things, you won't need the product anymore, but it helps you kind of move you in the right direction. So that's a lot of things, but super important.
Perfect, thank you. I have a question here from Nyla. I seem to get sick frequently. Does that have anything to do with recovery?
Yeah, it's a crazy time right now, as we all know, and people are really scared of getting sick. And not, in my opinion, not enough people are talking about immunity and boosting their immune system and, excuse me, taking care of themselves and recovering and sleeping. If you're getting sick often, that's generally a sign of what's called a depressed immune system, which means your immune system is not working to its capacity and its capability. So if you find you're getting sick, there is definitely an issue of you're not sleeping enough, you're not hydrating enough. Yeah, I know I'm a broken record, but it's so important. And you're not eating well. So you're not getting your body enough nutrition or nutrients in order to fight, So our body needs micronutrients. It needs, zinc, it needs vitamin D, it needs vitamin C, it needs magnesium, and I could go on forever. Those are just a few of the big ones. And you get all of those in your food. And then if you don't get enough in your food, then you add supplementation. So it's really important that you start to focus on those things, because it's not just, oh, it's bad luck, I got sick again this year, it's bad luck, I just get unlucky. No, it's your body is not in a position to defend itself. It's like your guard is down, your shield is down, and you're just taking shots. So that is super, super important that you look at those things. If you are getting sick a lot, one of the products we recommend too is Pascoe, which is one of my favorites. So we have the concentrate and we have the ampules, which is really cool. And they just actually started a little spray. Alex, you sent me that spray, which is amazing. You just kind of goes on a bottle and you can use it as a spray. That's something I have all my athletes basically always have three products when they're on the road. They have Pascoe Flair, they have lymph diural drops and cream, and they have Pascoe. These are like staples. So that's four, but it's three products in my opinion. They have these staples because they're the things that we use the most as preventative measures and for recovery measures as well. So Pascoe is great. You kind of start to feel under the weather, you start taking that, whether it's the ampules or the drops, which can be a spray format now. And that really helps to boost up your immune system. It's like an echinacea concentrate. and it's like mother herb in it and stuff like that. So that really helps to kickstart your immune system. But again, that's not just the answer. It's that's an amazing product that helps in conjunction with your sleep hydration and your eating. So those are some really, really important things for people to consider.
Perfect. You know what? It does look like we have answered everyone's questions today. I'll give it
Awesome.
another second here, but in the meantime, thank you to everyone again who has joined us and participated in the question and answer session this evening. And as always, a special thank you to you, Coach Gaétan, for joining us this evening. If you do have any questions about the information that was presented in today's webinar, please contact seminars@pasco.ca. We will also be sharing this recording on our website at pasco.ca under the webinars tab, and it will be posted for 1 day from now. In recognition of the time that you have invested in attending our webinar, we will be emailing participants a 20% discount on Pascoe Flair, Pascoe Gilles, and Pascoe Leucine drops, which is valid until December 22nd, 2020. Thank you again to everyone for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you at our next live question and answers webinar with Coach Gaétan in, oh my God, 2021.
2021.
How crazy is that to say we're almost there?
Can't wait.
Thanks again. Have a great evening.
Thank you, everyone.